And then the next persons you have is Tyrone Shepard. Is that correct?
That's correct, Judge. He's in custody.
All right. What is happening with Mr. Shepard?
Judge, we're back here on a bond setting. I had filed a motion to reinstate his bond, or in the alternative, request that you set a bond in the case.
No protein.
You reset the matter because the state, or to allow the state to call a witness if they wanted to, and I believe they have the pretrial services officer here.
Okay. Are there going to be any other witnesses besides the pretrial services officer?
No, Your Honor.
All right. And before we start with that, Nathaniel Navy, your client, Mr. Coronado, is zooming back in.
Oh.
Mr. Coronado, did you need anything? Coronado. You're muted.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask if I was excused.
Yes, you're excused. Thank you. All right, the court is calling 2021 CR 4086, State of Texas versus Tyrone Leonard Shepard. Could I have parties announced for the record for the state?
Meredith McIntyre for the state.
For the defense?
Nathaniel Navy, Your Honor.
All right, and are you Mr. Shepard? If you could unmute for me, Mr. Shepard.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor, I am.
All right, we're proceeding by video. Any objections from the state?
No, Your Honor.
Any objections from the defense?
No, Your Honor, no objection.
Mr. Shepard, do you have any objections with us proceeding with this hearing by video?
No, ma'am. No, Your Honor.
All right. The defense filed a motion to set or reinstate bond or set reasonable bond. We were here previously on, I believe, June 28th. And then we were to come back today to continue with this motion to reinstate bond. Defense, did you have? Yes.
Oh, sorry, Your Honor. The state also subsequently filed a motion to increase bond, increase and amend conditions. It was e-filed. I don't know if I know Mr. Navy got. Did you see that?
I did. I received it.
All right, just one moment. All right, the court is also in receipt of a motion to increase and amend bond conditions filed by the state. Defense, are you ready to proceed on that bond as well?
I am, Judge.
All right. Then since the state has filed a motion to increase and amend bond conditions, we have begun with your motion to reinstate bond. Did you have any more witnesses as it relates to your motion to set or reinstate bond, Mr. Navy?
No, Judge, I don't think that would be necessary.
All right, and then state you filed a motion to increase and amend bond conditions, but there is no bond set, is that correct?
Correct, Judge. And it was kind of also in response to what defense was asking, which was for if bond was reinstated for an actual lower amount than the original bond. And so ours would be to reinstate. We're not asking for remand without bond. We're asking for an increase
okay.
on the original amount.
All right. State, do you have any witnesses?
We do, Your Honor. State calls Lauren Garza, who should be on the screen as the pretrial officer for Mr. Shepard.
All right, Ms. Garza, Could you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you can lower your hand. Could you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Lauren Garza.
All right, state.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Lauren. Could you please briefly introduce yourself to the court and tell us what your current job is?
Yes, my name is Lauren Garza, and currently I am a Pretrial Services Officer Bond 3, and I specialize with the GPS unit as well as mental health.
And what kind of training did you receive to become a pretrial services officer with this particular unit?
The training that we received ultimately to become a GPS officer is we are trained to conduct interviews as well as interview defendants to get them released from jail who have GPS conditions, and as well as the training for our database that we use for the GPS monitoring, which we use Focal Point. And that training consists of knowing
Let me stop you there for a second. Let me stop you there for a second. I'm sorry. Before we get into Focal Point, I want to ask you, do you supervise as a pretrial officer a defendant by the name of Tyrone Shepard?
Yes, I did.
And how long had you been supervising him as his bond pretrial officer?
It had been, let me see, I can get you a specific date. It had been a couple of months, though. I'd say about 1 or 2 months since he had been previously released, or when his conditions got added from the special needs unit. But I can give you. Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. Can you tell us? I want to draw your attention to what you were talking about earlier, Focal Point. Mm-hmm. Can you explain what kind of training you get to be able to use that system and what that system entails?
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear my question?
No, I did. You broke out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said, can you tell us what kind of training you receive to use the system Focal Point and what all you use that system for?
Yes. So to use Focal Point, we were trained by the technicians that are employed through Bexar County. They're contracted from the Sentinel Monitoring Service. They're the ones that created Focal Point. And the training that we utilized from them is how to enter home zones for the defendants, exclusion zones for those individuals that have no contact orders, scheduling whenever they're allowed to go to certain places. And in addition to if they need to move their residence or anything like that. Also, we did learn how to put GPS monitors on the defendants as well as take them off.
Okay, and do you have your own work-assigned computer that you access this Focal Point database with?
Yes, I do.
And is it password protected?
Yes, it is.
Do you have your own password to Focal Point?
Yes, I do.
Does anyone else have access to this?
No.
What kind of information does Focal Point provide on a specific defendant who's being monitored under GPS?
The type of information that is provided is, of course, the location of where they're living, as well as the places that they go to, a certain time range of where they're at, in a certain location. If they go to HEB, it'll tell us exactly from what time to what time they were there. It actually shows us the speed of how fast they're driving. And then, in other words, it also shows the exclusion zones for, like I said, the individuals that have a no contact order. It'll show their charging percentage. It'll show.
How does the database record this information?
Everything is just based off the monitor. Everybody is assigned a specific serial number to their specific profile. And so whenever somebody leaves an authorized zone, it automatically sends us an alert and automatically gets tagged on their file. Or if they go into low battery, if they generate a strap temper, anything like that, everybody has their own profile.
And is all that information captured in Focal Point?
Yes, everything's captured to the minute.
And how would you know if your computer wasn't functioning properly or this particular database wasn't functioning properly?
We get notified by either the website itself will send us a message that an alert occurred, or if it's the whole system that's kind of crashing, then we get a phone call from the Sentinel monitoring service, which they're based out of California. And they'll let us know that they're having issues with the website, and we just have to wait for them to do like a nationwide reset.
Okay. So Lauren, I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And for purposes of the record, since we're doing this on Zoom, this has been emailed to the court reporter, the defense attorney, as well as the judge. So bear with me here. And Lauren, I believe you also have a copy yourself. I'm going to attempt to screen share here.
All right. Are you offering that into evidence?
I am going to be, Your Honor. Yes. Okay, Lauren, can you see what I have pulled up on my?
Yes, I can.
Is that the same image that I emailed to you as well?
Yes, it is.
Can you explain to the court what this is?
Yes, so that is an aerial view of Mr. Shepard's home zone. The whole green circle is what he had access to. Typically, when they live in an apartment complex, we do allow them the whole complex so that they can be able to take care of their laundry, go check the mail, stuff like that. So that is
zone, just so we're clear, this zone does it include more than just his apartment building?
Right, it does. As you can see.
Does it include more than just his apartment complex?
Yes, it does.
And what was the date on this particular report?
It was June 7th.
And how did you generate this report?
So along with our training, we are able to run proximity reports. So part of that is as well as running reports where we can factor out a certain day and a certain time frame. So that's how I was able to generate this report, is I factored in a certain date. As you can see next to the date, I started from 12 a.m. and ended it at 11:15 p.m. So all the points that you see on the screen occurred during that time frame.
And what is the name of the defendant that we're talking about here that's on this particular exhibit?
The name is the name of the defendant is Tyrone Shepard.
And what is this an aerial view of? What location within Bexar County?
So this is his home address, which is so that is just the aerial view of the back part of the apartment complex, because I think there's a little bit more to the front.
And this information that we see here, is this something that you can generate yourself? Like, do you type in these points?
Yes. So if I were to generate, or if I were to want to go back to the specific date or a specific time, then yes, I would input the date and the times into the side box, and then it would pull up these same exact points.
Okay, let me ask that again. I might have been a little bit confusing. I'm talking about the red pinpoints.
Okay.
That information there, is that something that you input, or is that automatically generated?
No, those are automatically generated because those are all the points that Mr. Shepard was at, all the places of the apartment complex.
On this particular date and time range.
Exactly.
And when you pull this information from the database, was there any reason that you felt like it wasn't working properly?
No.
Was your computer secure at that time?
Yes, it was.
And was the database secure at that time under your password protected access to this database?
Yes, it was.
And is this printed information in States Exhibit 1? Is it an accurate copy of the information that you generated from your computer?
Yes, it is.
And so, Your Honor, at this time, the state would like to admit States Exhibit 1 into evidence. Defense counsel
No
has
objection.
received a copy.
All right,
As well
any
as-
objection? I'm sorry, Meredith.
No.
Sorry. I said defense counsel has received a copy as well as the court and the court reporter.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then States Exhibit number 1 is admitted into evidence.
Okay, and Lauren, I'm going to ask you a few more questions based off this with my screen share still on because I think it makes it easier to understand.
Okay.
Can you explain the red pinpoints 8 and 10 and what that little exclamation mark means?
Yes, so that exclamation mark means that they have entered past their home zone. So basically, it's an unauthorized inclusion zone. So that's what those that's what that exclamation mark means, is that he is past his home zone where he's not supposed to be.
And so did Tyrone Shepard on June 7th of 2021, during that time frame here listed on exhibit number 1, did he ask for permission to leave his specified zone?
No, he did not.
And one more question on all these different points with different numbers.
Mhm.
Number 5 there, is that his actual apartment building?
I'm sorry, what number?
Number 5,
Yes, number 5 is his apartment building.
is number 3 up there at the top, even in his apartment complex?
Yes, that is on the other side of the apartment complex.
But it's a fairly wide range, correct?
Right. He's far away from his building.
Okay. And all the other points are still within that green zone.
Right, yes.
And do you guys ever have situations where you limit the zone to a smaller area within the apartment?
Yes.
that be done?
Yes, we have had some past instances where we have had to limit the movement around the apartment complex to where we just limit them to their own building, to their apartment building that they live in.
And is the technology capable of doing that under GPS monitoring?
Yes, it is.
I'm going to stop screen share for a second here, if I can. Okay, Lauren, the next thing I'm going to draw your attention to, so I lied, I'm going to screen share again, is exhibit number 2, which has also been emailed to defense, court, and yourself. Let me get the screen share. And Lauren, can you see this?
Yes, I can.
It's got multiple pages here. What
I
is
think
this?
if you hit the second button on the very bottom to your right, that middle button to the right, bottom right.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, the middle one. Oh, and right next to it.
Thank you.
Right there. Yeah.
I
It should bring
appreciate
up.
that.
Yeah. You're welcome.
So what is this a copy of?
So this is a copy of the update letter that I submitted them, let's see, on the 16th, referencing that there was a GPS device tamper with Mr. Shepard's device, and that the update letter was sent because a warrant was issued.
And are you the custodian of these records when there is a tamper or another issue with someone's GPS?
Yes.
Do you keep these records in the regular course of your business?
Yes, I do.
And when there was the issue on June 15th of 2021, how soon after that did you generate this report?
It was the day after.
So fairly
The-
close to the time of the incident.
Right. Yes.
And is that your signature at the bottom?
Yes, it is.
And is this a true and accurate copy of the letter that you sent to the court with the device tamper issue?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this point, the state would move to ask the court to admit State's Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Defense, any objections?
No, Your Honor. I believe you already have that.
Yes. State's Exhibit number 2 is admitted.
I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Okay, Lauren, I want to draw your attention to the tampering issue on June 15th. Can you explain how you got that information?
Yeah, so the warrant was issued that evening on the 15th. An email was sent out to us stating that a warrant had been issued. So the next morning I had to conduct the update letter because he refused to get his GPS monitor switched out, in which that's why the warrant was issued.
And also, did you receive a tamper alert from the monitoring call center?
Yes, we did at 5:28 p.m. on the 15th.
And once those two things happened, did you actually have a conversation with Tyrone Shepard about this incident?
Yes, so I didn't have the conversation with him until the 16th, the same day that I did submit the update letter.
And can you explain to the court what he told you about his monitoring device?
I would object to hearsay on that, Judge.
Your Honor, mission
Right,
by
and
party
it-
opponent.
You're asking what the defendant said?
Correct.
All right, that'll be overruled.
Go ahead, Ms. Garza. What did he tell you?
Yeah, so when I spoke to Mr. Shepard the day on the 16th, I asked him what had happened with his device. And he stated that he wasn't sure, but he was able to put the monitor back on. So he didn't think he was in trouble or anything. And then that same day, we did have our GPS technician and an officer driving around to pick up GPS monitors that had been previously cut or tampered with. And I asked him if that would be okay, if we could send a technician to his residence, and he said yes. I then asked him if he could put the monitor in a HEB bag along with the charger and place it outside his residence so that way we didn't have to go inside. And he said yes, he could do that.
All right, just 1 second, please. Eric Hernandez, I need you to go to breakout room number 1. We don't have your client's paperwork. All right, I'm sorry about that. You can continue.
No worries. So did he admit to you that he took his device off?
Yes.
And was there a period of time that he was not being monitored at all per his bond conditions?
Yes, from the time that we received the tamper to when he got picked up, it was about 5 days that he wasn't being monitored by us.
Okay, Your Honor. The state will pass this witness. No more
Right.
questions at this time.
All right, Mr. Navy.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Ms. Garza. You and I have spoken on the phone a few times, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon. And you had a chance to review State's Exhibit 1 prior to today's hearing, I assume?
Yes, I did.
And on that exhibit, those red bullet points, number 8 and 10, where it showed that Tyrone was outside the allowable area of his GPS, those are barely outside that green circle, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it's fair to say that if he did go out of that allowable zone, he was just right outside of it, correct?
Right.
And that area would still be somewhat close to his apartment complex. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And there's no other violation for him, actually. There's no other violation that you received where he was outside of that zone at some other location far away from his complex. Would that be accurate?
So he has left his residence before. I never submitted a formal violation on him. He was just admonished for him leaving without my permission. But those are all in the chronos of his file on CSS.
Okay. And was he in contact with you about those instances?
Not until I called him one time, and the other time was when he had already went home. And when I called him, I had to explain to him that he had to ask for my permission to leave his residence. And at that point, he was frustrated because he didn't want to ask my permission. But then he realized that the only way he would be able to leave without getting in trouble was to ask for my permission.
Okay. And on those locations, number 8 and number 10, does it appear that there's some sort of creek on that map, or possibly maybe a walkway or a pathway? There's some sort of squiggly looking something like that. Is that fair to say that it's possible that that's what that could be?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to confirm that. I'd have to go back and look like on the road view of it, just because those are the ones that show like the rivers and the pathways and all that. But yeah, I mean, those points are out of his apartment zone. So when I explained to him about him going to do laundry and check the mail and stuff like that, I told him that he needed to stay within his apartment complex property. And those points are outside of the complex. Okay, well, it's fair to say that even though, and I don't know the boundaries of the complex, but that's not another location where there's another residential building or another commercial building or anything like that. Correct? It looks like it's more or less some sort of undeveloped natural area, potentially a trail or something like that. Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. And has Tyrone ever expressed to you that sometimes he takes walks to help his mental state? Has that ever come up in conversation?
Yes, he did tell me once. He did ask if he would be able to walk. And I did tell him that it had to be within his complex, around his side of the buildings. So I did give him permission to do that, because I know he was going through, I think during that time he did have a mental breakdown when he was on the phone with me. So I did allow him to go that day, but I did make it clear that he had to stay within his apartment premises and he could not leave.
Okay. And then would it also be accurate to say that you have no indication that he's ever left that allowable area in order to get in contact with the complaining witness in the underlying case itself? There's no indication of that.
That he left his residence?
No,
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear?
Yeah, I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or.
Okay.
Could you just repeat that?
Yeah, no problem. I was saying there's no indication from your end that he's ever left that GPS allowable area in order to get into contact with the complaining witness in the underlying case.
Judge, I'm going to object that calls for speculation and it's outside her personal knowledge.
Well, I'm just asking if there's any indication that that's happened. I'm not asking her to say for sure one way or the other, but just that she has no.
That'll be overruled. You can answer the question.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I mean, the only time he's left was to go to the corner store. But no, I mean, he's never left his residence to go straight to where the complaining witness lives or anything like that. Because we do have that documented.
And when you say the corner store, was that one of the times where he left the allowable zone and just went to a corner store?
Yes, that time where I mentioned that he did leave without my permission.
Okay. And is that corner store, is that somewhat close to his apartment complex if you had to if you had to estimate?
Yes, it's about, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 blocks. It is outside of his zone, but I know he used to walk there. So it's within walking distance.
Okay. And then when you were first supervising Tyrone, he was not subject to the GPS monitor. Is that correct?
Right. He wasn't a fan of it.
Okay. But once it was ordered, he did go and get the monitor. Isn't that correct? And get it installed?
Yes, he did go eventually get it installed.
Okay. And then another one of his conditions of bond was to have no possession of firearms, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And an investigator from the district attorney's office went and picked up his firearms. Were you aware of that?
Yes, I was notified.
Okay. And Tyrone surrendered his firearms willingly and politely, to your knowledge. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there was no issues there?
No.
Okay. I have no further questions, Judge.
All right, any other questions from the state?
Just a couple, Your Honor. Ms. Garza, based on Exhibit 1 and his allowable zone, would he be able to go to his apartment pool where there are lots of different people there, potentially, and still be within his allowable zone?
Yes, he would be allowed to do that.
So he could be coming into contact with many people at this complex while under GPS monitor.
Correct.
And this operates a little bit differently than those people that are on house arrest that actually are in a house, right?
Correct.
And based on the issues we talked about before, would you say that he's been following all the rules and complying with his bond conditions?
In the beginning, he didn't, but towards the end, he did start complying. He did start calling me in advance every time he needed to go to the store. That's really the only place he asked to go because he needed water, groceries, stuff like that. And I did allow him, of course. But yes, towards the end of supervision, he was starting to comply a little bit more.
Until the issues that we spoke about around this June 7th and June 15th, correct? The tampering?
Yes, correct. The tamper and the leaving of the zone on the 7th.
And that would be a violation of his bond conditions, correct?
Correct, yes.
No further questions, Judge.
Just briefly, Judge, are you, if I may?
Yes.
Are you aware, Ms. Garza, where Mr. Shepard was arrested once the warrant went out for him?
I was made aware, I think Mr. Davis said that he was arrested at his residence, at Tyrone Shepard's residence.
Okay, so he was arrested at his apartment complex.
Correct.
Okay, no further questions, Judge.
All right, any other questions, state, of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
All right, is she excused or subject to recall?
She's excused, Judge.
All right, Ms. Garza, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Any other witnesses from the state?
No, Your Honor.
Defense, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor, no witnesses, just argument.
Your Honor, if I can just for 1 minute, I need to plug in my computer. Can we just pause for 1 second?
Sure,
I'm sorry.
no problem. Oh, that's okay. It's a Monday on a Friday, but we're all still have smiles.
I appreciate that, Judge.
Oh,
I've
no.
had to move spots quite a bit when we share an office on Zoom.
All right, so I know that everybody wants to do their argument, but if we could focus on the fact that he is on GPS, and from what I'm hearing and my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard the witness say that GPS was removed. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if anybody wants to address that issue in their closing argument, because the court's orders from, I think this is May 17th, if I'm reading my writing correctly, was he was placed on partial house arrest. He was allowed to attend all medical and mental health appointments and obtain necessities such as medications, groceries upon 24-hour notice. So if someone wants to focus their argument towards his removal of the GPS when the court placed him on GPS, that would be greatly appreciated. And
Yes,
so, State, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. I just have a few arguments as it comes to his bond conditions.
Yes.
Because the state did file a motion to when Your Honor does set the bond to increase it beyond what it was originally, which was $60,000. We are also asking for you to amend the conditions and make it such that, and the officer testified to this, that his allowable zone is more limited to just like his building, his apartment complex.
All right, everyone, just one moment. Can I see the state and the defense in a breakout room, please? If you all can go to breakout room number 2.
Yes, Judge.
A few moments later.
And the court will hear argument. State.
Yes, Your Honor. The state is asking for this court to amend his bond conditions. He had been allowed to be on partial. We are asking for him to be now on full house arrest. Should he make bond? Should this court post a new bond, no matter what the amount is, we ask for full house arrest, and we would ask that the allowable zone be not as wide as it has been based on his previous issues. We also ask that this court, when you do choose to set a bond, that it be doubled, that it be higher than the original bond, which was $60,000, based on the issues that we've been having with this defendant. We think he's a potential flight risk. He was not monitored for multiple days. He removed his own GPS device. He's been outside the zone. And the nature of the offense, Judge, the safety of the community. His allowable zone is large enough that he is able to interact with many different people within his apartment complex. And we just feel like it's a safety issue for the community. And we are asking this court to set a higher bond than the original bond. And should he bond out, it be on full house arrest instead of partial.
All right. Defense. Oh, Nathaniel, you're muted.
There we go. Okay. I said, thank you, Judge. I would just argue when my client bonded out initially, he did not have this as a condition of bond. And there was no violation that caused the state to file a motion to amend his bond for the GPS. They merely did it because of the alleged facts in the underlying case itself. My client was actually agreeable to the GPS in the first place. He didn't have any issue with it. He agreed to it. It wasn't something that he tried to fight or anything like that. It was just due to what the state believed was the nature of the underlying allegations, which, as of now, he's innocent until he's proven guilty, Judge. And I think what this hearing showed too, Judge, was that I hear that the state says that they're concerned about a flight risk. I don't think he's a flight risk. When he's outside of that allowable zone, it's right there in the back by his apartment complex. He's when he was arrested days later, they say he wasn't supervised for 5 days. Well, it wasn't like he went anywhere. He was arrested in his apartment complex, and speaking with him, he was just making chicken at his apartment when he was arrested and asked the investigators to turn his oven off so that it wouldn't remain on when he went into custody. And in speaking with him, we agreed that it would probably be in his best interest for this hearing to come clean and admit that, I know that there's been evidence presented too. He did remove the GPS. He stated that it was just getting extremely uncomfortable, cutting off his circulation when he would exercise. It was just something that he was having physical issues with. He said it would just go off at random times, and he did not know why. I don't know if it was because it was losing charge and that's just what it did, but so there was some issues with that. He knows that he should not have done that, Judge, but I think when we look at what are the purposes for GPS, number one, so that he's not a flight risk and doesn't leave and go somewhere. The place that he did go that the officer stated without asking was just to a convenience store down the road. And the other two locations look like it's just some either creek or potentially like a trail or something like that outside of his apartment. So he's not even going anywhere. He's just staying near his apartment complex. His family, who's on the Zoom today, they're from Georgia. He is having some issues with his apartment complex, potentially evicting him. So they were going to come in and help him get his things and find a new place. He does have support. His mother requested if it would be possible, and I don't know if the court would consider it, but allowing Tyrone to move in with her while this case is pending. She stated that she would keep an eye on him, get him any sort of help or treatment that he needs, and keep him in line. She's willing to do that, Judge. My client understands he's willing to get the GPS back on. Even if he's restricted just to his apartment complex, that wouldn't be an issue. And due to all those reasons, Judge, I would ask that you reinstate his bond and give him another chance on his GPS. If you're unwilling to do that, to allow him to post a $15,000 bond, Judge, just because financially the $60,000 bond, which he did post originally, is quite high. This would be in addition to that, and when we look at the main purpose for a bond, it's to ensure that he appears to court. He's never had an issue not appearing to court or anything like that. And like the issues that I went over before, I don't think he's a flight risk. I fear that, potentially the reason for raising his bond so high makes it an instrument of oppression rather than what the purpose of a bond is to be for, which is to assure that somebody shows up to court and faces the charges that he's accused of. And of course, he's willing to do that. There's been no issues with him being on any sort of court calls. And even if he did bond out, he would appear to court as requested and whatever his court dates are. So I would just remind the court, that would just be my fear is what is the purpose of raising it to that amount, if not to use it as an instrument of oppression, just to be sure he doesn't get out, when the main purpose of the bond is just to ensure that he does appear to court, Judge. And for all those reasons, I would request that you reinstate his bond with the GPS full house arrest. He's willing to do that. But if the court is unwilling to do that, and the alternative to set a bond in the amount of $15,000.
All right, State, it's your motion,
Yes,
so I'll give you a final argument.
Okay. A few things on this matter, Your Honor. The state, as the court and defense is aware, is not even asking this court to remand him without bond. That's not even what we're asking, and we could in this instance, but we chose not to. So it's not an instrument of oppression. Anytime someone has issues with their bond conditions on a serious offense, like the one we're here for, a serious violent offense, we don't reward them by then cutting their bond down to $15,000 or saying, sure, you can go to Georgia. No, it's for the safety of the community, given the seriousness of the offense and the fact he's had continued issues with his bond conditions, that we are asking for this court to double his original bond.
All right, this is what the court is going to do. I went to the breakout room with the state and the defense. We're going to come back on Wednesday. On Wednesday, I'm going to make my ruling on the bond amount. I'm going to make my ruling as it relates to the GPS. Defense is going to look into potential places or residences for Mr. Shepard to stay. Because if he makes bond, Mr. Shepard, you will not be allowed to leave the state of Texas and go to Georgia. I'm not going to allow that. So we're going to come back on Wednesday. That way, both parties will have a chance to look into potential residences for Mr. Shepard. And that will give us a chance to see what the update is on the psychological evaluation. Defense, if you don't mind me asking your client, Mr. Shepard, could you unmute yourself? It's the longest space, is the space bar. Just hold down the longest bar on the keyboard. Just keep holding it. Yes. Just hold it down.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Shepard, has someone visited you to give you an evaluation yet?
They visited me yesterday. I was speaking to someone, I was speaking to military personnel outside of here, and I just feel more comfortable because in here, I feel... No, Mr. Shepard. I'm not getting into the facts of your case. I'm trying to figure out whether or not someone has seen you to talk to you about any mental health issues. So has the doctor come to visit you at the jail to speak with you? Because that was ordered by the court. They came to speak with me, but I did not speak with them about any mental health stuff. Okay.
So Nathaniel, perhaps if you want to talk to Mr. Shepard about that, okay. And we will come back on, Norma, are we able to come back on this on Wednesday, or do we need to do it later in the week?
We can do it on Wednesday, Judge. I can put it for Wednesday.
All right, Mr. Navy and State, will that give you a chance to look into whatever you need to look into?
Yes, Judge, you will.
Yes,
All right.
Judge.
So we're going to come back on July 14th. And Norma, just set it for the afternoon at 2 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and then Mr. Navy, I'm going to send you to a breakout room with your client to speak to him about that evaluation.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
You're welcome. I'll send you to breakout room number 1. And Mr. Shepherd, if you can go to 1.
Several days later.
All right, guys, sorry about that. So are we in any type of agreement with Mr. Shepherd or no?
No, Your Honor. This was an extension of the hearing on Friday where the state asked for his bond. Should this, Your Honor, set a bond be doubled from the original amount? And Mr. Navy was actually asking for a substantially less amount than the original amount.
And that's true, Judge. Or if you would consider reinstating his bond if he got the GPS, and he would be amenable to. I know he was on GPS, but if he had it reinstalled, I know that he had that zone for his apartment complex. Even if you were going to make that zone be to where it was just the building, he was perfectly willing to comply with any other condition like that.
But this is the one where he actually removed the GPS. Is that correct?
Correct, Judge.
Correct, Judge. But he didn't actually, or at least there's no evidence that he actually went anywhere. He didn't contact the complaining witness when he was arrested for that violation. He was just arrested in the same apartment that he was supposed to be in, according to his GPS conditions.
Well, and Judge, I don't know if you'll remember from the hearing, but there were 5 days that were unaccounted for. So we actually don't know where he was for 5 days. So I don't know that that's necessarily true.
Okay. All right. We're going to go on the record. We're back on the record in 2021 CR 4086, State of Texas versus Tyrone Shepherd. We're having a hearing to reinstate bond or set bond. And this is a continuation of that hearing. So are both parties ready?
Yes, Judge.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. And this hearing appeared to have began on July 9th. State's Exhibit number 1 was admitted without objection. And State's Exhibit number 2 was admitted without objection. The court had a chance to review State's Exhibits 1 and State's Exhibit number 2, and the court heard and has read the motion from defense counsel. Is there any other argument from either side?
Nothing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, defense, it's your motion. Go first.
I was just going to say nothing additional, Judge, but I don't know if you'd like for me to kind of outline my argument from Friday, just so that it's a little bit more fresh.
Sure.
Okay. Basically, when this case started out, Judge, or when Mr. Shepherd was on bond, the state filed a motion to amend his bond based not on any violations or anything like that, but just due to the alleged nature of the underlying facts of the case. Mr. Shepherd actually agreed to have the GPS device installed. He didn't fight that. He gave up his firearms, which was another condition that the state requested. He did that without incident. The DA's office investigator that picked those up stated he did that willingly, complied, was very polite with them. And then Mr. Shepherd did remove his device, but he, in my conversations with him, it was just due to the discomfort of it when he would exercise and things like that. He said it would hurt with his circulation and other things like that. And he, at least to my knowledge, Judge, and from the evidence that the state provided, he really didn't go anywhere that was far away from his apartment complex. Even the violations, if you'll recall at the hearing from Friday, where he was outside of that bubble where he was supposed to be when there was violations on the GPS, he was just barely right outside that zone where he was supposed to be in. It was the pretrial services officer agreed to that. And it looked like there was some sort of creek or trail that's right behind his apartment complex where that was. I know that Mr. Shepherd he likes to take walks just to assist with his mental health. I think it helps him. And so it's clear to me that he wasn't taking off the GPS to actually go anywhere. He didn't get in contact with the complaining witness. There's no evidence that he tried to contact the complaining witness. And I would just argue that the purpose of the GPS device is so that you don't flee and so that you don't contact the complaining witness in the case. And there's no evidence that he fled. Like I said, he was arrested at his apartment. He was just cooking right there at his apartment when he was arrested. So there's no evidence that, that he's a flight risk or he took it off to go anywhere or, make contact with any specific person or anything like that. I know that the court was probably not going to be in agreement with that, but his family is on Zoom today. They're very supportive of him. However, they do live in Georgia, Judge. They would be willing to take care of him or and provide him with any assistance he needed if he was able to bond out. I know that his apartment complex is most likely, or they're in the process of evicting him just because they found out, or to my knowledge, it was because they're evicting him because they found out about this charge. And because of that, I think that violates the condition of his lease. If somebody's charged with that, they have the discretion to kick him out. So I believe that somebody from Georgia would probably be coming down to help him find a place if he needs to, if he is able to bond out. So he does have the support of his family. I would just ask, I think that he'll comply with his GPS device, Judge, and not make that, that mistake, obviously, of taking off the device. Obviously, that's a huge deal, but he didn't do anything in order to get in touch with anybody or flee. So I would just ask that you reinstate his bond or have his new bond be at $20,000 just because he's not going to be, I don't believe he's going to be able to post a bond himself. He'd have to have the help of his family, and they already posted the amount for a $60,000 bond. And so any amount in addition to that, even if we're keeping it at that same amount, they've already posted that amount, Judge. That's why I'm not asking for the same bond, and I'm asking for a lower bond because that's already been done before, and it would drain some substantial resources from them.
All right, stay.
Your Honor, just to kind of summarize what we said on Friday as well, the state has a different perspective on this defendant in this situation. Not only is the GPS device there to protect the victim in the current offense, but it's also a matter of protecting the community at large. And with a case like this, a violent offense, someone who struggles with mental health, who, when not in compliance with that, has the tendency to become violent, we're also looking at the safety of the community. Mr. Shepard removed his device, so he violated his bond condition. He was unaccounted for 5 days. We don't know where he went in those 5 days. He was also outside of his zone. His zone was substantially too large, in the state's opinion, to keep the community safe. We're asking that the court, based on his violations of his bond, actually raise the amount beyond the 60. From our perspective, we don't believe it makes sense to essentially reward someone for violating their bond conditions on a violent offense by giving them a substantially lower bond. So that's what the state is asking for. And Your Honor, it was not part of the hearing, but the state, and I won't get into the facts because it has not been investigated yet, but the state just became aware this morning that a warrant is being walked on an additional case on this particular defendant. So no matter what we decide today, there's going to be further bond issues in the future.
Mr. Navy, are you aware about this warrant?
Only, I mean, just from hearing that from the state when we went to the breakout room, Judge, I don't know any of the facts of that case. I think the state, I'm not going to speak for them, but I don't think that they're very clear on the facts of that case. So I would say that's something that you shouldn't consider for purposes of this hearing, just because there's no evidence before you. I think we should just consider what the evidence was from the hearing on Friday, because I can't defend against that when I don't even know what the allegation is, if there's any merit to it or not, Judge.
Okay. Well, what I can tell if there's nothing else, no further argument for either side, I'm not inclined and I'm not going to reduce his bond. At the end of the day, Mr. Shepherd, and we say remove, but I'm assuming he cut off his GPS because there isn't, you unbuckle it. So is that what happened? He cut it off? Is that correct?
I'm not aware of the circumstances of how it was removed. I just know that it was.
Okay. So I'm not going to reduce his bond. So he had a previous bond of 60,000. The state, you are asking for 120. Defense, knowing that the court is not going to reduce his bond, the state is asking for 120. What would you be asking for? Are you still going to stand on reducing it?
I would stand on reducing it, Judge. I think I would frame it a little bit differently, since we're not reducing his bond. This is going to be an additional bond to something he's already posted. So no matter what it is, it's going to be more than 60. I wouldn't say I'm not asking for his original bond to be less. He's already posted that. And now whatever amount he would have to post is just in addition to that. So that's just why I would argue for that lower amount, because when you add that up, it's, even if you made it 20,000, that would be a total of 80, which is still higher than what it originally was. That's just my perspective, Judge.
All right. The court is going to set his bond at $80,000. All other previous conditions will be given, with the only exception, it's going to be full house arrest. And if the defendant is released from custody and he has a medical appointment, then he's going to have to receive pre-approval for those appointments. But it's going to be $80,000, and it is going to be full GPS.
And Your Honor, is there a way to clarify with the GPS and the department? Because I was unaware until this hearing how they do that zone. On this full GPS, and he is going to remain inside whatever location. So that includes like not being able to go to the mail center and things like that on the other side of the complex?
No, he's going to have to remain inside the location. And if he, Mr. Navy, if he shows the court that he is able to follow the court's orders, then of course, the court is always willing to reconsider to give him some more freedom. But now we're back to where we were before, which is full GPS.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome. Do you need to speak with your client?
I have one other matter, Judge, so I'll probably just set up an appointment with him either tomorrow or Friday.
All right. Norman, can you let them know that Mr. Shepherd, 14F, can go back? And Mr. Shepherd, when the court gives rules, you've got to follow those rules.
Yes,
if
ma'am.
there's an issue with the rule, then you still need to follow the rule, address it with your attorney, and the court will set it on the docket.